Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming to you live from Black Facts Headquarters Central, deep in the archive. Deep in the archive tonight. And let's go ahead and get this party started. Our proverb for tonight is, if you burn a house, not that one. Those who know both ways and proceed to take the incorrect one may not be able to reverse themselves later. Those who know both ways and proceed to take the incorrect one may not be able to reverse themselves later. And that's a proverb from out of the mind of Haki Madhubuti, otherwise known as Don L. Lee, aka Don L. Lee. All right, Black Fact for today. Let's see what we got. All right. Let's see. Okay, we did that one there. So we're on this one over here. Was the Father Divine Peace Mission founded by George Baker or Samuel Morris? Was the Father Divine Peace Mission founded by George Baker or Samuel Morris? And we'll be black in just a moment after we read our story for the night to answer that important Black Fact question. Meanwhile, let's continue on with our story out of the memoirs of two young girls out of three who were part of this story. So you see a picture of them depicted here. Those are actresses. Those are not the actual children. But the book is called Follow the Rabbit Proof Fence. It is part 2. Follow the Rabbit Proof Fence. So, sorry, wrong bookmark. I got 2 bookmarks in here. Okay, Follow the Rabbit Proof Fence. So we ended up by describing their breakfast after the girls had been, basically they were kidnapped and taken away to a boarding school where they would be taught how to be maids and laundry women and things of that nature. They were going to be given some subservient, we call those subservient skills. So here we go. So they talked about the offal collected from the slaughterhouse and taken down to be cleaned and cooked on the coals of a big fire. They said this is what the food was like. It was like the leftovers from the slaughterhouse floor. All the entrails and the parts of the animals that people didn't want to eat, they could take that. I guess I don't know where they were getting it from, but they could get those, collect up those leavings, and they would take them down to the riverside and cook them down there. And they said, yeah, that stuff didn't taste good at all. And this food they served them on this day tasted about as good, if not worse than that. After breakfast, Martha Jones escorted them outside. Hey, look, it might fine up later, she said, with cheerful optimism as they descended the wooden stairs onto the wet graveled path that led back to the dormitory. Just as Martha was about to open the door, one of the older boys called out to her. That's my cousin, Brother Bill, she explained. Our mothers are sisters. The girls from Jigalong understood, as they were also daughters of sisters. Go inside and wait for me, she told the 4 nervous new girls. They weren't sure whether to go inside or wait for her outside. They watched as she started to run, but stopped suddenly because she found that the ground was not only slushy, but very slippery. Her bare feet made a squelching noise as the mud seeped between her toes. The 2 cousins met in the middle of the compound and stood talking softly for a few minutes, then parted. While they were waiting for Martha to come in, Molly, Daisy, and Gracie whispered in Madaduwanga, their own language. I don't like this place, whispered Molly. It's like a jail. They lock you up at night. Oh, there's the other word I was looking for. They lock you up at, where'd my pen go? Disappeared on me. They lock you up at night and where were we at? Um, they lock you up at nighttime and come and open the door in the morning. They had all noticed the bars across the windows and were really scared of them. Martha returned to the dormitory and sat on one of the beds near the girls. They were able to have a really good look at their new friend. She was a very pretty girl with short, cropped, straight black hair and hazel eyes. But best of all, she had a beautiful, sparkling smile. You feel good. Bill just wanted to know who you all were and where you came from, Martha said. He will pass the information on to the rest of them. New arrivals has always created great interest, but most importantly, hope. Hope of news about relations back home. The rest of the morning was spent in the dormitory, sharing information and stories. After lunch, the weather had fined up, but there were strong gusts of wind blowing across the compound, and it was beginning to feel quite cold. Martha Jones suggested they go for their walk. She stood up, gave a cursory glance around the dorm, then called to her friend Polly Martin, who came from Onslow on the north coast. You coming with us? Asked her. Where are you going? When Martha explained that she wanted to take the new girls for a walk around the place, Polly joined the small group. Yeah, that's better than sitting just looking at each other, she said. They decided to go behind the dormitory, then follow the trail along the cliffs overlooking the brown, foaming river. The path on the cliff edge was covered with loose, fine, pale sand. The slopes were rough, dotted here and there with small, thick shrubs. Loose stones on the slopes made them difficult and hazardous to climb. Behind the girls was the big house, quote unquote, the superintendent's residence. Do you want to go down and have a closer look at the river? Martha asked, looking at each one in turn. Yes, they responded with enthusiasm. As they were about to pass by the milking sheds, they heard a lot of shouting, yelling, and laughter, which seemed to be coming from the flat on their left. Hey, Martha and Polly, come down and have a game of rounders with us, a group of girls called. You girls want to have a game? Asked Martha. The newcomers shook their heads. Well, that's all right. We'll go down this way. You'll be able to get a closer look at the floods. Polly waved to the crowd at the football oval and shouted loudly, we're taking the girls for a walk. A walk while it's fine. All right, we'll see you later. The river and the flats on either side were full to overflowing. To the girls from the East Pilibhata region, this chocolate-colored river was a new and exciting spectacle. Quite different from the normal pinky-colored salt lakes, creeks, and rivers back home. This sight only made Molly more aware that she was a stranger in this part of the country, as were all the others in this small group. We are all cut off from our families, she thought, and was overcome with a deep longing for the dry, rugged, where did it go here? Oh, shucks, lost my place. For the dry, rugged, red landscape of the Pilbara. Still, sighed Molly, you couldn't help being fascinated by the swirling currents and the frothy white foam that clung to the trunks of the paper bark trees and the tall river gums as they rounded the bend of the rough road, still stepping cautiously, trying to miss the muddy puddles. They were surprised to see about 6 or 7 girls, one aged around 17, with a group of girls, 8 years old or perhaps younger, all wading across the icy cold water. The eldest girl, Edna Green, was showing the youngsters how to cross to the other side by using a long stick to measure the depth of the water. The smaller girls were following their leader. Their cotton shifts were tucked into their bloomers. Why are they doing that? Asked Rosie, who couldn't understand why anyone would go walking in the freezing river on a cold, wet day. Just for something to do, that's all, Martha told her. When it's not raining, we go for long walks all over the place, said Polly. But you see that big rock over there? She said, pointing across to the far side of the river. Well, that's a wood archie's cave. Don't go over that side. What are these wood archies? Asked Rosie. Wood archies are little hairy men. Someone saw them for real. You know, no makeup, she said seriously. They must be same as Mataboos, whispered Molly. This is Matabu country. We can't stay here. They might kill us, she added, glancing at the gray limestone rock jutting out from behind the thick bushes. She turned to her two younger sisters and was about to speak when Rosie, who was still watching the river crossing, asked Martha, what will they do when they cross the river? They will walk along the banks on the other side, and when they find a safe spot, Edna will decide to cross back over. And if anyone falls in, they will make a big fire and stay there until their clothes are dry and then return to the compound. See you later, the girl said to Edna and her followers, and they continued their stroll along the muddy path up to the first paddock. Polly and Martha decided that this was as far as they were going this afternoon. They stood admiring the pleasant view from the bottom of the hill, which was covered with the golden blossoms of acacia shrubs and occasional bushes of bright pink flowers. I don't feel like climbing the hill, said Martha, but if you do, I suppose I'll have to come too. Nobody wanted to clamber up the stony cliffs, so they retraced their footsteps to where they had started. The group were passing the spot where Edna Green's girls had made their crossing when a shrill whistle filled the air and echoed through the trees. It startled them as each one was deep in her own thoughts. They all followed the sound that came from high above them. The whistler was leaning on the trunk of a wattle tree, and he waved to them. Polly beamed as she returned the friendly gesture. The handsome lad, who was almost 18, beckoned her to join him on the cliffs. She shook her head, then pointed to the four girls, hoping that this would explain why she couldn't meet him. That's Polly's boyfriend, Jack Miller from Mount Magnet. They're going to get married when he gets a job on a station or farm somewhere, Martha whispered as they walked ahead, leaving Polly behind to send hand signals to her beau, who was now sitting on the edge of the cliff. Polly caught up with them as they approached the cowshed. They were greeted by the cheering spectators and teammates of the winning Rounders team. The crowd at the football ground had increased while they were walking along the river. Polly and Martha introduced two of the older boys to the newcomers. As they were talking, they were interrupted by someone shouting loudly from a nearby building. Hey, who's out there? Inquired a pathetic voice from inside. It's me, Martha Jones, and Polly Martin, and four new girls. Can you tell my sister to bring me some meat and damper and some tea too? The girl asked. Her voice sounded so alone and unhappy. Yeah, I tell her, promised Polly. Molly, Gracie, Daisy, and Rosie looked hard at the gray square building. What is that place? Asked Rosie, doing the talking for the other three. That's the boob. They lock anyone in there for punishment, Martha explained. What did that girl do? Asked Rosie. Who? Violet Williams? She's locked up for swearing at Miss Morgan, the teacher. She's lucky. She's only in there for 2 days. Martha told them about the others who had been incarcerated in the boob. You should have seen the other ones who were locked up for running away, she said. They all got 7 days punishment with nothing but bread and water. Mr. Johnson shaved their heads bald and made them parade around the compound so that everybody could see them. Then they got the strap too. Oh, poor thing, said Rosie. Everybody felt sorry for them, Those three from Carnarvon, Martha said. Did they get far? Asked Rosie. Nah, they only got as far as jump uphill along the railway line between Gilangata and Mogumbert. They knew that the train that goes through to Geraldton slowed down there, so they waited there ready to jump into one of the goods vans. The black tracker found them there. The girls pleaded with him to let them go, but he wouldn't listen. He just whipped them with his stock whip. That's a horse whip. Martha said with anger in her voice, he made them walk all the way back without a break while he rode his gray stallion like a white policeman. Anybody get away properly without being caught? Inquired Rosie. Nah, lots of girls have tried to run away back to their homes, but that black tracker has always caught them and brought them back here again to be flogged and locked up in the boob, replied Martha. The boob was a place of detention once described as a small detached concrete room with a sand floor with only a gleam of light and little ventilation coming through a narrow barred opening in the north wall. Every inmate of the settlement dreaded being incarcerated in this place. Some children were forced to spend up to 14 days in that horrible place. Polly and Martha led the girls past the boys' dormitory, the sewing room, and the front of the big house, down the graveled road, through the pine plantation, along the kindergarten fence to the hospital. That road goes down to the camps where the married couples live, said Martha. And this one, pointing to the one on which they stood, takes us back to the compound. And where does this one go? Asked Rosie, facing east and nodding in that direction. That's the road to Mogumbert, the only one in and out of the settlement, Martha told her. And there is a fence right around this place. They returned to the dormitory to rest and talk. One thing on which they could all agree was that this place was certainly different from what they envisaged. When the sons and daughters of the landed gentry and businessmen and professionals such as doctors, lawyers, and politicians were sent away to boarding schools to be educated, they were likely to be given pleasant rooms that would be theirs for the duration of their schooling. Instead of a residential school, the Aboriginal children were placed in an overcrowded dormitory. The inmates, not students, slept on cyclone beds with government-issued blankets. There were no sheets or pillow slips, except on special occasions when there was an inspection by prominent officials. Then they were removed as soon as the visitors left the settlement and stored away until the next visit. On the windows, there were no colorful curtains, just wire screens and iron bars. It looked more like a concentration camp than a residential school for Aboriginal children. Back at the dormitory, the girls were trying to snuggle down in their cold, uninviting beds. Molly, Daisy, and Gracie began to talk normally amongst themselves, not whispering, but speaking in their own relaxed manner. You girls can't talk black fella language here, you know, came the warning from the other side of the dorm. You got to forget it and talk English all the time. The girls were dumbfounded. They couldn't say anything but stare at the speaker. That's true, said Martha in support. I had to do the same. They tell everybody that when they come here and go to school for the first time. Molly couldn't believe what they had just heard. We can't talk our old Wanka? She whispered, that's awful. We all know it's awful, Martha told him, but we got over that, she added calmly. Molly lay staring at the ceiling, pondering their fate and the kind of lifestyle they could expect at this strange place, and she didn't like it not one bit. After a while, she and the rest of the girls dozed off to sleep. Sometime later, they were awakened abruptly by a loud voice telling them that the bell had gone. Come on, get up, tea time, everybody, the voice told them. Throughout the dormitory, sleeping forms began to rise from their narrow beds. Once again, Martha took charge and led the four newcomers to the dining hall for a meal of watery stew, almost a repeat of what they had for dinner, except they also had bread and treacle, whatever that is. When no one was looking, Molly put all the unwanted crust in her calico bag and nudged her young sisters on either side of her to do the same. For later, whispered Molly. Well, everybody finished now, asked Martha politely. Yes, said the girl softly. We'd better hurry. It's going to rain again. They stood briefly on the veranda to watch the thunder clouds rumbling in the west. There was a flash of lightning, followed by another. Quick, run, urged Martha. It's going to pour down. Soon, they reached the dormitory just in time. Many of the other boys and girls were running quickly to beat the rain. It began to fall lightly at first. Then as darkness approached, the wind blew strong and cold. All the inmates returned in their dormitories. The younger ones lay quietly in their beds, listening to the older ones, sharing with each other stories, anecdotes, and hopes for the future. After roll call and lights out, Molly listened to the slide of the bolt and the rattle of the padlock. Then silence. It was at that moment this free-spirited girl knew that she and her sisters must escape from this place. So, yeah, they must escape. And we're going to end there. We'll pick up tomorrow, which will be our last day reading this book. And we're just going to read as much as we can tomorrow about their escape. It's really it's some kind of story. I saw the movie first, so I'm just not getting a chance to read the book. The version is different. There's definitely differences, but it's very similar to the movie, except more long and the stories are a little bit drawn out. But you get more details and learn some of the language and some of the foods and what the culture is like. So that part is definitely good, and what their impressions were, what was going on in their mind. So that's our story for tonight. All you little children need to lay your little heads down on your little pillows, on your little beds, close those eyes and wait for that sun to rise. And when you feel the beams, those sunbeams on your eyes, and your eyes start to turn all red inside, you'll know it's time to rise and greet the day in a new way. So we hope everybody will have a good day tomorrow with no sorrow. This is Doc Ock. I'm about to sign out. But before I do, let me just say to you, that's all you adults out there, please do your due diligence. If you haven't subscribed to our channel on YouTube, subscribe so you can be notified when we post up some new live streams. We do it regular every day at noon and 9. That's why we call our live stream Doc Ock at noon and 9. So tomorrow we got some other stories we're going to be reading about another foot soldier, another adventurer out there on an adventure, Mr. James Beckworth. So we'll be reading that for our noontime live stream, and then we'll finish up with Follow the Rabbit Proof Fence in the evening. But meanwhile, don't forget, you can also make donations. We're in the midst of our fall fundraising campaign. We call it 2020-2020. We're trying to raise $20,000 by October 20th, 2020. We could use a contribution, a donation from you. And if you can make it a regular one, once a month, let's say $20, $5, whatever, that would be grand. You won't even notice that it's gone. So give us your support. We really appreciate it. We're glad to see y'all out there. Ronnie, I'm looking to talk to you. And Paita Moyo, I see you out there as well. So good looking out. Glad to see y'all on the live stream tonight. Peace out. We'll be black tomorrow. Doc Ock at noon and 9. Signing out.